We all get scared, especially in trading. You know, trading, we deal with a lot of stuff, right? We deal with FOMO, we deal with ego, and who likes to be wrong and who likes to lose money, right? That's a lot of stuff that we deal with constantly. We're constantly dealing with that. It's something that I have to deal with every day. And I think all traders deal with this. It's just the difference is the ones who are doing really well, they know how to separate their emotions in terms of seeing it for what it is and not using that emotion to make decisions. Instead, they I see myself going through this. I see myself going through fear. You know what? I'm gonna choose to go this way and make decisions without that emotion. Now, here's the thing. It's not that easy. The three pillars I'm talking about are ego, losing money, and FOMO. These are things you're gonna be dealing with as a trader constantly, okay? Ego, in other words, of being wrong, right? Not being right. That is something that I have struggled with myself. That's my weakest pillar. Or you could say the strongest pillar that has been so strong in my trading that has been very difficult for me. But one thing that's really helped me is meditation. It has helped me a ton in my trading. I do it every day for 15 to 20 minutes a day, and that has really helped me because it helps me separate that emotion. Now, the emotion's still there. As I mentioned earlier, the other traders who do really well, they still experience this, but they don't let that emotion run their decision making. How I do this is through meditation. I've learned that I can recognize the emotion, then acknowledge it and say, you know what? I'm gonna make a decision based off my process. So it could be very helpful for you to have a checklist on what your process is. So that way, when you run into fear from ego, you can go ahead and say, does this fit my checklist? Is this my setup? And then go down that and make sure you're making a decision off of process. Now, the other pillar is losing money. This wasn't an issue for me personally, just because my ego was so big at the time that I just hated losing, that I really didn't care about the money itself. But for some people, losing money can be detrimental. Doesn't matter the amount. So if that's you, you need to make sure that if you're risking $1,000 per trade, that may be way too much because you might be associating the money that you're losing with real world items like rent or car payments or buying groceries. If you lose and you're like that's groceries for the month, then you need to downsize that dollar amount to where all you're thinking is oh, that's a pack of gum, not a big deal. You want to get there, because if you can get there, then you can lower that pillar and easily break it down. That's their goal there, so that way you're not stressed and making decisions off of losing rent. Now, FOMO, that's hard. It's really hard because that was one of my strongest pillars at the beginning of my trading. It used to interfere with me and make me revenge trade. You're probably like, how? Well, because if I missed out on a trade, because I hesitated, because I didn't want to lose money, the second pillar that we talked about, then I missed something that I should have taken because it would have worked, and now I have FOMO, and so I revenge trade and make what I think I'm owed, which is ego. All of that starts to combine, and that pillar, when it comes to FOMO, is really strong, and you got to be careful. You need to make sure you have things in place to prevent you from executing based off of FOMO. Have rules. Have rules for entries. Don't just say it's my setup, so I'm entering. Have a trigger to be in. What is a trigger? Let's say you trade breakouts. Don't get in because it's about to break out. Get in because it did break out and it tested and it held. Have real triggers. If you like indicators, then use them for your trigger and say when it holds VWAP for 5 minutes on the 5-minute candle, then I'll get in. What I'm saying is triggers, okay? You need triggers to execute. You don't just say, big picture, it's a long, I'm gonna get in. You need a reason. And that was what we talked about earlier. You should have a checklist. And part of that checklist is your triggers. Did it trigger? Should I be in? So that way you can prevent yourselves from having FOMO. So that way, when you do have FOMO, because you can't prevent yourselves from getting it, right? When you do have it, you go to your checklist, did it hit your trigger? It can help you prevent yourself from pulling trigger just because you're fear of missing out. Instead, You're like, nope, I can't pull the trigger because I have rules on why I'm entering the stock and what needs to happen for me to do so. That is something very important. The other thing you want to make sure is if you're chatting with friends or in a chat room or anything like that, try to ignore everyone else, especially during the trading day. Because if you're trading and you miss something, or maybe there's no setup for you today and you're being very disciplined, but then all of a sudden you see 8 other traders killing it. What happens? One of those pillars gets really strong and then they take over, then you get FOMO and then you start attacking the market randomly. Don't do that. Instead, be aware of your 3 pillars. Be aware which one's the strongest. Make rules to help you when you're in the moment of emotion, because it's gonna happen. You're gonna get taken over by emotion. Maybe take a 5-minute breather, walk away, 5-minute meditation, meditate before you trade, or have something in place where you write down your emotions out loud. I'm feeling fear right now because I missed this. I'm upset because I took a trade and was wrong. That will help you acknowledge what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, and help you make a better decision moving forward. Good luck.